Who's the first 2026 head football coach firing? We're going to discuss it right here on Locked On the Portal.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making this your first listen. And also thank you for making Locked On across the board the number one podcasting network in the land. We have grown substantially in the last few years, and it's been a blast to be a part of it. Truly, thank you to all. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Today, this is getting really close to the end here, folks. FanDuel, it is last call for football. If you are a new customer, also, you can bet $5 and get 200 bonus bets if you win Super Bowl 60 coming up this weekend. We're going to be discussing some of the coaches that are most likely to be fired. Dave Aranda, Bill Belichick, Mike Norvell, Shane Beamer, and others, all across the board during this podcast. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about it and why? Is it a specific game? Is it the buyout? Is it the lack of recruiting? Is it staff changes that were or were not made? Whatever it is, make sure you post throughout the podcast. I'm going to give my take across the board on all these different coaches that I bring up. And I'm not going to mention everybody, but I have my own short list on and why. I want to give some recruiting scoop on why I think they are or are not doing a good job there, things of that nature. But if you take nothing else from this podcast, note the following. The buyout is a big deal. I do Locked On the Portal, but I also do Locked On Seminoles. Following the Noles, I can tell you, no doubt, Mike Norvell, who is number one on just about any list. If you type in hot seat, college football coaches, I don't care which browser you put it in, you're probably going to see Mike Norvell number one or number two on the list. However, I did my own little search today. Recently, Saturday Down South brought up something that was interesting. $51 million buyout. I don't know what it is exactly, but that's what they had. Maybe it's 46, whatever. But if it's north of $40 million in any way, shape, or form, I don't care what the total is, that's a problem. So with every one of these guys, it's a big deal. Here are the coaches that I want to discuss, and I'll go into a few schedule points and let people make their own assumptions. But these are the guys that I've got. Mike Norvell at Florida State. Obviously. Shane Beamer, that's a concern. $19.5 million buyout the last that I saw. Dabo at 57, somebody talked about him. I'm like, I don't see that. And I'm not going to cover that. But I just wanted to mention, if Clemson wanted to cut bait 57, that's a lot. Bill Belichick was 20. Bill O'Brien, 12.5. Luke Fickell, I don't know what his buyout is, but he's coming off 4-8. And their boosters are spending more now. So if they spend more and their portal's pretty good and they don't win this year and he goes below 500, that could be a problem. Dave Aranda was 5-7. Mike Locksley was 4-8, lost his last 8. Aranda lost the last 3. There are a lot of reasons for many of these guys, but let me go through and give you an example of why this is such a big deal. I cover the portal, I cover recruiting, and I can tell you firsthand from recruits, 7-on-7 coaches, trainers, etc., the stability of the head coach and everybody underneath that head coach would be why or why not recruits go to a school. Boosters, fans, alums, they want to hear that the player is going to pick the patch that's on the shirt or the helmet. And there's some degree of truth in that. There are certain schools that have an edge, a Georgia, usually a Florida State, a Texas, okay, but it's still the head coach that at the end of the day matters because he assembles the staff and then the recruits build bonds with their corner coach or running back coach, offensive line coach, whatever it may be. So to that end, if the school you root for or maybe against, if the buyout is massive, there's a good chance in today's world where money with NIL and players being paid, it may be another year or two. I am steadfast that Norvell would have been canned this past year if it wasn't for his massive buyout. To that end, let's look at a little bit of a scenario here. I have the following going on. FSU opens with New Mexico State. That should be a W. But then right after that, they play SMU at home, which I think they'll probably lose and start 1-1. They get a bye week, and then they play Bama on the road. Yeah, I don't see that. That's 1-2. If you're Norvell and you start 1-2, then the next 4 games are as follows. If you're on YouTube, you can see this, but I'll read it off. Central, Arkansas, that's where Norvell played. That's a dub. Okay. You're 2-2, but then your next 3 are as follows. Virginia, they don't have the same quarterback. They don't have the same luxury with all those seniors, but they did have another good portal class. If you lose that game in Doak, you would be 2-3 and then staring in the face a road game on a Friday night at Louisville. Brom is an excellent coach. We all know this. Then the week after, you would go and play the Miami Hurricanes, a possible and I think probable top 5 team, and it's your rival. So you could be sitting there at 2-5 with a bye week coming after this. And then, the first game they play after the bye, they play Clemson. Yeah, that's right. They play Clemson. I don't care if they play it in Mike's backyard, whatever. If they're 2-5, that could be a problem. And I have a feeling that the powers that be don't want to see that. They would use the bye week to get rid of it. If you agree, that's fine. If you don't agree, that's fine. But either way, again, after they play SMU and Bama, and I expect them to go 1-2, it's Central Arkansas. That should be a dub. But then you've got Virginia at home, at Louisville, at Miami. I think at minimum, you're going to lose 2 of those, and almost guaranteed you're going to lose at least 1. If I had to bet, I would say they would beat Virginia, but every time I think something's going to happen with Florida State, it doesn't. So why should I think that's going to be the case? I don't know. I'm guessing. They're really hard to predict week to week. The one thing I do know, this is fact about Florida State, and it's a big topic. They did not win a road game, not one, in 2024, nor did they win one in 2025. 0. That's hard to do. And it's Florida State. That's really, really hard to do. And like I talked about on yesterday's pod, look, there are a lot of different reasons that you can look at these lists with portal additions, etc., and think up or down and all that. And I'm going to do some more SEC stuff later today and talk about it. But from talking to some people last night covering Florida State, I wanted to do this to get a measurement, what people think of not only Norvell, but Beamer and some other guys. So it's not an easy scenario to do, but I've also kind of taken the time to look at some of these. And it's really hard. Let me look here and see what we got in the chat. Anything crazy going on? Katie, what's going on, Katie? I would have to bet Norvell, but now that Malzahn is not around, I can't see it happening until postseason. Belichick will retire. And she puts it in quotation marks. I'm curious, Katie, why do you think with Malzahn not around, I can't see it happening? I assume you thought that he would take over for the rest of the year. That's possible. Who would be the interim at Florida State is a really valid point. That's an interesting one. Katie also says Aranda and Beamer will survive. Aranda just seems to hang around. He was 5-7 and lost his last 3. Beamer, I'm going to read off a few just for the record. Well, you know what? I'll come back with that. That's a really good point. Beamer's one I disagree. Their schedule is not friendly. Let's talk about that after the break, because I don't think Beamer's going to survive. And the reason he's not that great in like the A&M game last year hurt, by the way. He's not great in close games, and their schedule is not friendly. Let's talk about that next right here on Locked on the Portal.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukelage and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
once again for making Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you want to take your game to the next level, check out the Everydayer Club so you can get all your audio downloads without ads. $5 a month or $50 for the year. It's the best deal going. And further information down below in the description. We've got a link. It's going to discuss the Discord and everything else. Check out the Everydayer Club. Now, I also want to discuss Shane Beamer. This is something that I find very interesting. Everybody's got their own opinion on what's going to happen with South Carolina. Like, they were so close, and they're just a frustrating football team. 31-3 at halftime on the road at A&M and lost. There's no other way to say it. That's a joke. Kent State, Towson, those are the two teams they open with, and then they get at Williams-Brice, Mississippi State. They should start 3-0. They should start 3-0. But is that enough? Well, it's going to get a lot more difficult after that. I can assure you that. And here's how I know. The schedule does not lie. It is not friendly. And afterwards, look what they got there. Bama on the road. Kentucky's, we'll see. They got Will Stein. But they got Florida on the road. That's not going to be really fun to deal with. I'm sure, the swamp is always hard. I know it's a new coach. We'll see. Off week at Tennessee, at Oklahoma, A&M at home, at Arkansas. That's a winnable game. Another new coach. Georgia at Clemson. I mean, what do they have? Maybe they'll be favored in how many games here? Maybe at Arkansas, that'll be a close. Kentucky at home, possibly. Mississippi State. Then the two games there. I see 6 wins maybe, and I know they've got a good quarterback. But at what point do the fans really sit there and say, you know what, that's just not good enough? That's just not good enough. And everybody's got their own take on this. How many wins do you need to get to? But the other part is, how does it look? They can't have another 31-3 situation and let that go. Let's start with that. And they need to win some of those games that mean something. Like they have Bama and some of these other teams on the ropes so they don't get over the top. If they win at Bama or something like that, that can also erase some of this. I get it, but it's not easy. To that end, I'm going to leave this up here for those of you looking at YouTube. Like, that middle part of the schedule is one thing, but the beginning, like, you got to get those dubs early, because once you get to the Bama game, it just goes into a really bad stretch right there. Katie commented on this, and that's why I brought this up. It's a lot of fun to discuss, but there aren't a whole lot of teams that are going to have a tougher stretch than what they have. Let's see here. D Troll Hunter, Norvell is what he thinks. Absolutely. Dude's OC just bounced because he knows it's Dookie. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Florida State just couldn't get the money behind it. That's probably true in regards to what's going on at FSU. Like, they're allegedly the number one school in debt in terms of the public schools. I don't know if that's 100% true, but like, maybe it's Rutgers. It's one of the two. Rutgers is in a really bad state. But there are a couple of schools, like Florida State, at least, they just did it with renovations, by the way. Next up, what we got here? They are a poverty program. Detroit, Virginia lost. It could be. It could be. Louisville's a loss. Miami's a loss. He's not very confident in Florida State. I can't say I blame him. Katie, I would have seen Gus taking over as the interim head coach. I probably would too. I would have made it easier for Florida State to cut Norvell loose. I agree with that. It's not hard to see that happening, but you know what? It's part of the game. Katie also says, tough schedules saved Napier a few times. Sometimes that schedule is a savior. That's a good point. It's a good counterpoint. On the other side, what is it like? Is there a guarantee that it is? No, because it's still how you look. If you have a tough schedule and you go out there and you can beat 21-4, you got a couple safeties or something, your offense did nothing, like you just feel bad for the defense. That's frustrating for the home crowd. 21-10, anything like that where the offense is bad, that hurts. People want to see offense. I think that hurt Napier. Their offense was so bad last year, just as an example. But Florida State, their schedule is not terrible, but it's a little more hard this year because Miami's on the road. The Louisville game's not friendly. They never really played Clemson great, it seems like. They're going to be playing them again this year. They've got Bama on the road. For South Carolina, Bama on the road. They have games against Georgia, against Tennessee, against Texas A&M. Those are tough spots, man. Those are really tough spots. And I'm gonna give my picks. I've got a handful here on who's going to get fired and why. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. And to be honest, this is kind of fun. It's the off season. It's time to make some projections. So let's do that next, right here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day without all the stress and worry. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from the beginning of the process till the end without the stress or the guesswork of, hey, did I get all the right paperwork? Did I get everything off in terms of the deductions? Did I send in the paperwork to the right people? Do I trust this person? You name it. There's a lot of reasons to go with TurboTax. For a limited time, you can also have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file your last tax return, that's good, because then all you have to do is just do this by the 28th of February for $150. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com to book your appointment today. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It is the last call for football. The NFL season is coming to a close. NFL Super Bowl 60 is coming up, but that's the final football game of the year, the last chance to get in on all the action. And it's the biggest game of the year. So whether you're backing Drake May to throw for 3 touchdowns, you think that there's going to be an unbelievable defensive performance by the Seahawks, whether you're just going to give the points and go with the Seahawks, they're the favorite. Maybe you think taking a few points and going with the Patriots is the way to roll. Maybe it's a parlay, whatever you want to do, check it out with FanDuel. And for your new customer, $5. If it hits, $200 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Make it count. Last call for football, Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Here are my predictions on the firings. I have a new thought process on what's going on. I don't know exactly the timing. Depends on what people want to do. But if I'm right, I'm looking at the Florida State schedule. I've had a little bit of a change. I thought he would survive maybe this next year, but I'm starting to think he will get fired. It will be either Beamer or Norvell for me. That's my pick. But here are the other ones that I think, just by looking at some schedules. Mike Locksley at Maryland, are they ever going to fire him? He seems like he's on the hot seat every year. He lost his last 8. 8 in a row. That's rough, man. You can say whatever you want about any program, but when you put that many L's together consecutively, that's going to be rough. He could be the first. It's possible. Looking at the list again, like Dabo, that's not going to happen. I saw somebody talking about that. I just don't see it. Bill Belichick, I think they're going to win enough. I don't think he's going to get fired, but 6-6, 7-5 is kind of where I see it. It's not an easy slate. Bill O'Brien, they were 2-10. Quarterback play, I think, will be a little better. But do they get above 5 wins? That's a program I just don't think they have enough money NIL-wise. I don't think it's just the head coach. That's a problem. Luke Fickell is another one. They spend enough in the offseason. I've been talking about this on Locked On Badgers for a while. I go on there with Ryan Herrings quite often. They were 4-8, and I didn't even think they were going to get to that. They improved, and then they put their money where their mouth is. The Badgers absolutely went out and spent. Colton Joseph, the quarterback, comes over from Old Dominion to play for the Wisconsin Badgers. They got some good defensive pieces. They got some edge guys. They got some corners, etc. Okay. And they went out and got Shamar Rigby. They've got some good players at receiver. They got a good running back to come in and compete. This should be a pretty decent team. Now, can they put it together? The fans want to see 7 or 8 wins minimum. That's a big jump, but it should be a more talented roster. And they've had injuries at quarterback the last 2-3 years. Like, they need some health to go their way. Like, they've been snake bitten. So I think he will survive. I think he'll win at least 6. probably 7 or more. The schedule is much more tenable than it has been the last couple of years, although they do open with Notre Dame. Beyond that, the only thing that I can say is there's always a surprise. Who's the surprise out there? Is there anybody? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, there's going to be somebody that loses their quarterback early in the year and it gets kind of funky. Like, does that count? Maybe. I don't know. There are a handful of coaches where 8 wins is not enough. Be careful, though. Nebraska fired their coach like 20-some years ago at 9-3, and they've never been the same. It depends on the program, but there's always something to look at in terms of each program's expectations and then where they are. So to that end, Katie says, South Carolina has great fans and deserve a winner. They absolutely do. That fan base is crazy. They will fill Williams-Brice, win, lose, or draw. 100%. It is a incredible fan base. It'd be kind of cool to see South Carolina be good, to be honest with you. The issue with Florida State is fire Mike Norvell. You have to make a home run hire. Do they? Here's my other question for anybody that fires a coach in 2026. Who is next year's golden child in terms of the next hiring? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? I don't know if there is that guy because think about it. Think about all the coaches that were in G6 this year that got swooped up. Golish went from USF to Auburn. John Summerall, he took his talents from Tulane to Florida. Those are just a couple, but that's the start. Silverfield went from Memphis to Arkansas. North Texas coach, he headed over to Oklahoma State. Like, how many are there? I'm going to make one proclamation. If not one, but both of Indiana's coordinators are not gone after this next season, I would be surprised. Shanahan's the OC, Haynes is DC. If both are not gone, I would be shocked. And I think some of the teams that I mentioned today would probably look at both of them. I think Haynes is the best coordinator in the college game on the defensive side, and Shanahan's pretty good too. To that end, there's probably some others. If you have a comment about a coordinator you think should be up for it, or a G6 coach, or maybe a guy that may jump up, it's already in P4, give me a reason why. Fire away in the chat or listen to this later, comment on YouTube, etc. Chesney at UCLA, that's another one. Yep, that's right. He took the JMU program beyond what had happened with Kurt Cignetti, but there you go. He goes to UCLA. That's a good one. Kenny Dillingham. This is an interesting one. Did he re-up with Arizona State? Like, I don't know what's going on there, but that's interesting. Oh, this is good. Ooh, this is good. The Hammer 106 says Dan Mullen. Well, anybody hire Dan again? Maybe down south. Maybe he would. This would be hilarious. Maybe Dan, if Beamer gets fired, is the next head coach at South Carolina. Remember, Steve Spurrier, his last job with South Carolina, obviously the Florida legend. Who knows? Maybe there's a similar pattern there. There could be other teams too. Thinking about the SEC, Kentucky's new job. This is a little rough. I don't think he's really on the hot seat, but it's warm. Is Kalen DeBoer at Bama? If they go 8-4, he's in trouble. Do I think they're going 8-4? No. But really, just think about the SEC right now. That league is going to have probably very little turnover. Beamer by far, hot seat. But Florida, Auburn, Kentucky, LSU, those are some of the big jobs. They're all new. Arkansas, new job. This is our new coach, excuse me. Like all those guys are new. How many are there going to be? That's the hardest league to keep your gig, in my opinion. It's the SEC. Big Ten, okay, Fickell. Definitely Luke Fickell. Michigan just hired a new coach. Michigan State just went through the whole shebang. Penn State just went through it. Ryan Day could leave technically, but he's not going to. Indiana, nah, obviously not. Purdue, they improved. Illinois got a coach they like. We'll see if it's a matter of retirement there. Kirk Ferentz, I don't know when he's going to retire. Minnesota's coach is steady. Nebraska, maybe. We'll see. They lost their quarterback. I don't know where that's going, but there just aren't that many jobs compared to this past year that I think are going to come open. Mullen shouldn't have been fired at Florida. That's possible. Yeah, this is what I mentioned, Hammer. If you came in late, Dave Aranda finished 5-7 this past year, and the Hammer says Dave Aranda is a possible firing. He's right. I brought it up earlier. They started 5-4, but then they lost their last 3. When is Baylor going to have a good defense? That's what I want to ask. Dave is a defensive coach. They're better at offense. It makes no sense. Are they ever going to get rid of it? I don't know. They're a team that's going to hover around 500. I just don't think he's a great head coach. He's a better coordinator. I mean, most guys are. There's nothing wrong with that. But he hasn't gotten it done there at Baylor. Norvell won't make it to November. I talked about that earlier. You're probably right. Just to throw it back up there. Here's that schedule again for Florida State in the middle of the season. They start off with New Mexico State. That'll be a W. But then they play SMU, bye week at Bama. If they start 1-2, as I expect, here are the next 4. Central Arkansas, home to Virginia, at Louisville, at Miami. They should be 2-2, obviously beating Central Arkansas. That's Norvell's alma mater. But even if, you just lose 2 out of those 3, if you get shellacked at any of them, and I think Miami will beat them by 2 touchdowns or more, it could be a problem. That could be when he gets fired. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my take. The Hammer, I don't see Lagway saving him. Lagway's got to get healthy. We're talking about Dave Aranda here at Baylor. He's just got to get healthy, man. Like, there's just no way around it. Absolutely, unequivocally needs to be healthier than he was. That's my take. I'm curious what people think about that, because it's not easy switching schools and all that, and he's been banged up. But they really need quarterback play to be good, because, again, at Baylor, Dave Aranda's squad has been better at offense, and they just lost their quarterback. He's going to head on to the National Football League, and we'll see if DJ's that guy. It is what it is. I really don't know what's going to happen there. But to that end, Baylor is just one of several teams that it's kind of iffy. The Hammer. Jake Dickert is going to be a hot name to get a bigger job. Okay, that's one. Does anybody else have anybody besides Jake Dickert? I mean, there are a few possibilities, but pretty much the guys that I think are going to be the hottest names are coordinators. Again, both the coaches in Indiana, 100%. Maybe there's a few other coordinators around college football. What about Charlie Weiss Jr.? If he does a good job with Lane at LSU, they got 40 transfers. Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe there's somebody else. But I don't think there's going to be a great list. And a lot of coaches, just for full disclosure, would rather coach in the NFL now because they don't want to deal with the portal, NIL, and all the madness, the inconsistency. That's the one major advantage with the NFL. You may not like certain things, but you know when everything is. It's choreographed. Makes it a heck of a lot easier for your family and for yourself. Katie, Corey Heatherman. Yep. Defense coordinator at Miami. Good call right here. He'll certainly get some phone calls. There is no doubt. Young coach, did really well for the Canes this past year. One world. Heatherman is a future head coach. Absolutely. Fran Brown was a hot name, but his stock is starting to trend down. They were so banged up last year. I'm not surprised. They can't keep guys. They don't have enough NIL for the trenches and defensive players. He knows offensive football. What's ironic, because he was a DB guy for Kirby at UGA. I think he's a really good coach. He's an incredible recruiter, but they got to win some games. They do have their quarterback back after an Achilles. I'm not going to jump down that rabbit hole, but if somehow Syracuse wins 7 games this next year, maybe that could be a possibility. We'll see. But Fran Brown's a good football coach. I think he's in a pretty tough spot, though. Being down there, that's not easy. Or being up there, I should say. Not easy to recruit to Syracuse for football. Beamer is not that great, but South Carolina is not that good of a program either. Yeah, like historically, South Carolina is a bottom feeder. They've just never gotten over the top. It's a small state. They compete for recruits in state with Clemson, and Georgia raids them, Florida raids them, Ohio State raids them. Like, everybody comes down there to try to pluck one guy. North Carolina, NC State, FSU, they've always had that, and they just don't ever seem to get over the top. Again, though, man, South Carolina fans They are loyal. Really appreciate them. Thank you, folks, very much for making this a really fun podcast. I appreciate it. I will see you all again soon. This has been the Portal Podcast.